Hello and welcome to the Satluj TV podcast. Now, my guest today was born in Singapore but arrived in California at the age of 21 some 44 years ago. And like many others in the diaspora in those days, he was an apostate Sikh. But it was the terrible attack on the Golden Temple in 1984 that changed everything. And he then became more directly involved with the community. He became an active member of one of the first post-84 US youth groups, the Sikh Youth of California, which later combined with others to become the Sikh Youth of America. And he ultimately rose to become president of that organisation. He also became president of one of the largest gurdwaras in California, the Fremont Sikh Gurdwara. He's also the founder of the Sikh Information Centre, the Organisation for Minorities of India, and the Sovereign Star Publishing Company. But he has also been a very prolific author with published titles including Faces of Terror in India, Demons Within, Cultural Malware and Kite Fights, amongst many others. And his book, Captivating the Simple-Hearted, has been translated into Tamil, Hindi, Punjabi and Telugu. Bhajan Singh Bhinder, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. Now, Bhajan, I want to focus on the events of 1984, but specifically the genesis of that terrible military operation, Operation Blue Star. Now, you have spent many years researching what intelligence agents, military officials and civil servants involved in that operation have admitted went on behind the scenes leading up to the attack and, of course, the subsequent massacre. And you've managed to piece it all together into quite a shocking story. Could you please give us an idea of what you did find?
Well, the findings are simple. The genesis can be traced back all the way to the 16th century. Moving on to today's topic on the attack on the Amritsar, we have documentation now that active planning started as far back as 1976. Then they had plans in 1978, 1980, 1981. They made plans to use violence. They wanted to use tanks to attack Mehta Chowk. Later on in 1982, directions were given to attack the Akal Takht. And then in 1983, we have high-ranking army officers, defense officials, busy, demoting officers, army officers, promoting army officers, those who want to attack, they don't want to attack. This whole promotion, demotion, and moving around of the loyal army commanders started way back in 1982. So that's how far back we can calculate that this devious plan was taking place.
So to clarify that, what you're saying is that the Indian Army deliberately promoted and demoted officers bearing in mind their allegiance to India, their allegiance to Punjab. So basically they were already sorting out the officers that they knew would be happy to attack the Akal Takht.
Well, looking at the insiders' information, for example, Brigadier Manmohan Sharma wrote a book called What Ails the Indian Army. And in that, he clearly mentions, I'll show you quickly, he clearly mentions that how this army is nothing more than a slave dynasty. So you can see in his book. So on the makeup of the army, the inside information from Brigadier Manmohan Sharma, a very bold Indian Army officer who writes in his memoirs, What Ails the Indian Army, he clearly depicts the slave mentality of the army, how weak they are, and they will answer to the whim of Indira Gandhi at any moment and do anything for her. So that the insider is telling you about the willingness to demote people, suppress promotions, so that Indira's ultimate goal of attacking the 1984 attack on the Amritsar could be materialized.
So you've talked a lot about. We're going back 8 years at least that planning was falling into place for this attack, which is an enormous length of time. So when do you think Indira Gandhi became involved? Was she involved from the very beginning, or did she come in later? What did she do to get this attack underway? What was her original plans?
Well, I think the dynastic rule, that she wanted continuation of the rule for her family and the children, is one of the key motivator, again, to many insiders. And also she has animosity towards the Sikhs, a continuous animosity dating back centuries. The idea of Sikhi today is a threat to the way Indira wanted to run her nation. So if you look at the book, The Conspiracy of Khalistan, written by an insider, G.B.S. Sidhu, he calls this whole hatching of the plan against Punjab, going back to mid-70s, he called Indira Gandhi, Sanjay, Nehru, all these the Akbar Road gang, who were planning a diabolic action to destabilize Punjab.
And so she must have used some form of, well, in her mind, legal mechanisms to launch this attack. And there is talk of a white paper. Could you perhaps explain what this white paper was and the history of that?
So the white paper is the official document, an explanation to the nation, which basically explains to the Indian nation why the attack was necessary. So it's almost like white paper is supposed to be the paper of truth, where everything comes out and she bears out her soul to the nation and explain that why it was such an action to use the army against its own citizen, resulting in so much death of the army itself, and then so many deaths of civilians, women and children. So she explained that in the white paper.
And I understand this white paper accused the Akali Dal of deliberately agitating the Sikh community, of creating problems deliberately. Is that true?
Well, the white paper, if you will see, it says that the reason for the attack on the white paper is the agitation itself, or was a reason for the attack. And the agitation was basically about more rights for Punjab, water rights, and basically demanded that a federal system be established, more rights for states, giving more power to the center in a federal system, and also protecting the resources, opening up borders for trade. And one of the important demand was that the teachings of the Bhagats and the Gurus be relayed from Amritsar. Either the Akali Dal themselves could do it, or the Doordarshan, the official and only state media, allocate some time. So because India is such a poor place for human rights, caste divisions, so the teachings of Nanak, Namdev, Ravidas, and Kabir ordains that the Guru Granth Sahib be facilitated to the greater populace of India and beyond, so that people can learn and be free of the caste taboos. So these were some of the demands that the white paper is saying is the agitation was the reason, the root cause of all these problems.
So is this the Ananur Resolution that I've read about, which I think was an appeal for basic human rights and basic or some very simple autonomy?
before it became a Anandpur resolution, it was like a federal resolution. According to the original promises, linguistic states were to be recognized, more powers was to be given to states, promoting culture, religion, trade, economics, and protecting the interests of each state. Later on, this document, because it was announced at Anandpur Sahib for Punjab, the general document is good for the whole of India, if not many parts of the world. But in particularly, it took the name of Anandpur Sahib resolution, where states were asking that they be able to control the destiny of the population of that states.
So, in the lead up to 1984, the Ananur Resolution was obviously tabled. It was put on the table to negotiate with Indira Gandhi and the government, and it was a simple plea for basic rights, for simple, as you referred to, the riparian rights, the right to extract water from the state's own rivers, to irrigate their own agriculture. Why do you think Indira Gandhi was so hostile against what appears to be a very reasonable list of requests?
Well, if you want to understand this, we have to go back to the Mughal Brahmin co-rule era. The first attack in Amritsar happened in 1586, when a Brahmin general serving under Akbar, on his way to Afghanistan, he stopped in Amritsar, and he shook up Amritsar. He was mean to Guru Arjan and demanded money. And Guru Arjan said that, the teachings are for the masses, the very poor and downtrodden of the society, and there's no wealth to spare. Birbal then threatened that after I come back from Afghanistan, if I'm not paid enough money, I will raise Amritsar to the ground. So you can see there is animosity against the idea of a Darbar Sahib reaching out to the masses, where the teachings of Ravidas, Kabir, Namdev, which abolish caste, and Guru Nanak, which teach gender equality. So this kind of people like Birbal, who were benefiting the upper caste, they make up 40% of the Mughal administration. They were benefiting from the downtrodden, the wretched, and Catherine Mayo called this people of India worms. So it's very sad that the continuation of these ideas and policies by India, where she not was only against the rights of the states, but also against the ideas of the preachings of the Bhagats and Gurus of the sons of soil of India, reaching the masses so they can fend for themselves and be enlightened about the message of sovereignty in the Guru Granth Sahib. So it's multiple reasons or underlying reasons for the hostility towards Punjab, going beyond just the mere demand of water rights. They had a problem with the language of Punjab, which dates back centuries. Earlier too, the makeup of the earlier co-rulers of the Mughals were Brahmins, upper caste, and again they were called the Sanskrit thinkers. And today too, most of the elite and the judiciary and the people in power in Delhi, they are upper caste. So they have a continuous hatred towards the ideas that will free the masses. So in this case, you will see that the language of Punjabi, which is the language of Guru Granth Sahib, has been suppressed. Then they were telling the Gurus to use Sanskrit instead of Punjabi, and the Gurus responded, Sanskrit is a well water, whereas Punjabi is like a rainwater that will reach many people all over the place, and the well water is controlled and contained, and nobody can reach this knowledge. So there are ideas, there are historical relevance to these ideas of opposition to Punjab in many ways.
So clearly, over a very long history, all this hostility between the Indian government, the Indian state, let's call it, and the Punjabis, it's funneled, it's filtered into, well, it reached a head in 1984, this dreadful attack. And Indira Gandhi must have somehow justified this attack. Clearly, she had been planning it for years and putting all the pieces into place ready for this attack. How did she justify it to the people of India? How did she justify such a hostile military assault on the most sacred site? She must have had some reason that she sold the idea to India.
Yes, she planned a very meticulous fight, strategy. For example, in the white paper, the agitation of the Akalis, she said that had developed into a communal and extremist movement. So in 1982, around April, cowheads were placed on Hindu temples, and responsibility was assigned to Sikh organizations. So what she did was she then used these cowhead incidents where on the cowheads the note in Punjabi was written that Sikhs won Khalistan, they won special status for the Golden Temple. So a handwritten note was found on the cowheads which was placed on the Hindu mandirs. This was like a primer to isolate the Sikhs from Punjab. So when they were attacked later on, there'll be no outcry or sympathy. So on the cowhead incident, there is a book by an insider who was IS officer and a secretary in the Home Minister. He has confessions of another IS officer who was a chief secretary to the Congress government of Punjab, who confessed that, hey, you remember those cowheads in 1982? The Sikhs did not do it. We had arranged it. So this is a one high-ranking secretary confessing to another Home Ministry high-ranking official who has put it in his book. But in doing so, by putting the cowhead, she has managed to distance other people from the Sikhs in Punjab who were seeking federal status for their states. She has also isolated the Hindus that Sikhs are dangerous and they want Khalistan and they want to attack the cow, which is a very integral and respected part of the Hindu religion. She also strategized this in April 1982. Now, Bhindranwale came to the Akal Takht in August 1984. So this tells you, irrespective of Bhindranwale inside or outside of the Golden Temple, Indira Gandhi has diabolic plans to do such deeds through her special agency. It was called the Third Agency, where used the civil servants, intelligence agency, and the army officers all in conjunction to make sure that the public was primed and she could pave the road to attack the Darbar Sahib and attack on Amritsar. That's one example.
This is shocking because what you're saying is the Indian government, or the secret intelligence services, should I say, created what we call false flag operations. And this is something, what is interesting, it's reflected even today where we have seen false flag operations by the Hindutva people. So back in the early 1980s, leading up to Operation Blue Star, false flag operations were being unfolded by the intelligence services to deliberately turn the Hindu population against Sikhs.
Yes, in a big way. In fact, Brigadier Manmohan Sharma in his book, What Ails the Indian Army, reveals an operation called Operation Samba, which was headed by a General O.P. Malhotra, who was later promoted after the Operation Blue Star to be the governor of Punjab. Now, in Operation Samba, they were exchanging beef cattle to Pakistan in exchange for pistols from Pakistan. So Brigadier Manmohan Sharma in his book writes, and many of these weapons found their way into the Golden Temple. And so such involvement and promotion of these officers and later giving them civilian awards clearly tells us that Indira Gandhi's plan were meticulous, they were dangerous, they were premeditated, and neither Sikhs nor India nor the world has any chance against her diabolic plans.
Yeah, and what I find very curious here then is Bhinder Valley. He is now a revered figure. He died he was a heroic martyr in the greatest possible way, giving his life during Operation Blue Star. And do you think it's almost ironic now that Bhinder Valley clearly was almost irrelevant to this? The attack had already been planned, but he was used as an excuse, as a reason to attack the Harmandir Sahib. But of course, the outcome, the backlash of that attack has made Bhinder Valley this figure around which the community has rallied, has focused. He's become almost a folk hero, as we would call him. And this has crystallized, this has strengthened the pro-Khalistan movement. So do you think that is almost an unforeseen outcome for the Indian government, that actually what was a small part, almost an irrelevant part of an attack that was already planned, has actually now become a key figure in crystallizing the Khalistan movement and what followed?
Yeah. So on Bhindranwale, in September 19th, 1981, where they wanted to arrest him, actually they've been harassing the Taksal even before, where the Indian government has organized from 1950s a volunteer militia group calling themselves Nationalist Sikhs, Nirankaris, and both Patel and Nehru has decided to promote this Sikh sect to counter Sikhi, not even the Akali agitation, nothing like that, counter the very Sikh idea of independent, sovereign Sikh nation. So this militia, a volunteer militia calling themselves the Nirankari, they were harassing Bhindranwale in Mehta Chowk, Sant Kartar Singh, the predecessor. And their processions were stoned, and Nirankaris who were willing to, people who were willing to join just like the Indian army later willing to join Indira Gandhi, at that time, many civil servants, district commissioners, they were joining in Indira Gandhi, converting themselves to Nirankari so they could harass Bhindranwale. So Bhindranwale grew up in an atmosphere of animosity where he understood the workings of the Indian state, especially the Congress, very well. So in 1981, September 19, Indira Gandhi ordered Western Command head Lieutenant General Sinha to use armored vehicles to attack the Mehta Chowk. So there were many people there. Some claim to be hundreds, thousands people there. So Indira Gandhi was looking for blood, looking for massacre of the Sikhs in a big way for various reasons, political, personal, and dynastical, going back to her association with the Kaur family who had problem with the six gurus, and she is the lineage of that continuous problems. And on the note of the Khalistan, and of course Bhindranwale today is exonerated, is revered, and all the oppressed people of India should be told the story of Bhindranwale, because many are suffering the same fate. If you're a journalist, you suffer the same fate. If you're an activist, you're Muslim, you're Christians, everybody can feel what Bhindranwale went through, because many, many people are under the same treatment. So going back to this Khalistan, the G.B. Sidhu conspiracy of Khalistan clearly says that the Indian state wanted to paint the Sikhs as Khalistanis, although Bhindranwale never demanded Khalistan, not a single time, and there are ample evidence, everyone is written about it. But surprisingly, in 1980, she sought the assistance of her Cold War partners, the Russians and the KGB. So in 1980, according to The World Was Going Our Way, the archives of the KGB, it reveals that KGB ran a secret operation called Operation Contact, where they falsified documents and presented it to the world that the Sikhs won Khalistan, the ISI, the Pakistan Intelligence Agency, is giving money and supporting the Sikhs for Khalistan. Now, this is a very close ally of India, which has helped India in many ways, including to control the communist movement in India. Russia's weapons were used to kill the communists in India. So you can see her scheme of things, and she's a very crafty lady, and how she schemed things and used international agencies. Later we found out she used the UK intelligence agencies, probably used the Mossad, who knows. So these ideas of painting the Sikhs as Khalistanis so she can, just like the cowhead, she was priming the whole nation and the world to accept what was coming to the Sikhs as they asked for it herself, although it was all her plans.
And that, I think, is a perfect example of what we call the law of unintended consequences, because clearly, as you have mentioned, the Ananur Resolution was not a demand for Khalistan, it was a demand for basic rights. And of course, the attack on the Golden Temple then focused the anger of the Punjabi youth, the Punjabi, well, generations of Punjabis, into then demanding an independent sovereign Sikh nation. So that the unintended consequence of trying to marginalise and then destroy the Punjabi, the Sikh culture, has actually ended up now with a growing, fast-growing Khalistan movement. So yeah, to me, it is an unintended consequence of what happened back in 1984. But if I could just ask you, I just want to ask one specific thing, which has always interested me. The aftermath of 1984, of the attack on the temple, of course, when the news leaked out, then Punjabi soldiers, Sikh soldiers in the Indian Army heard about this massacre, this genocide, and of course, completely understandably, they left their barracks, they left their military posts, and they marched. 5,000 of them marched to the Golden Temple, and they were stopped, and many were killed by the rest of the Indian Army. Do you know anything about that part? And also, as you answer, I'm also interested, and this is a bit of information I recently picked up, was that the Punjabi regiment itself, the actual regimental headquarters, which was obviously based in Punjab originally, was relocated before 1984 to Uttar Pradesh. The only regional regiment that was relocated from its homeland to a different state. Now that to me implies, again, long-term planning for this operation, and knowing that once this operation became public and the massacre became public, that Sikh soldiers throughout India and the Indian Army would then march upon Punjab to defend their most sacred site. And of course, then it could turn into a civil war. Do you know much about that side of it?
Yes, I can shed some light to it. Actually, I would say that Indira Gandhi full well knew what the reaction of the Sikh soldiers would be, and she tried her best to suppress it. She was warned by Lieutenant General Sinha when he refused to attack Golden Temple, and he said there will be civilian casualties in his memoirs, the soldier recalls, he says that also there are many Sikhs in the Indian army, and they have served the Indian army loyally, and their psyche would be hurt. Later on, in order to attack the Golden Temple, she needed a partner in the Western Command. So Sinha was head of the Western Command. Without the Western Command in the pocket, she could not have attacked. So she called Sinha to Delhi under the pretext that I want to promote you. This happened after August 1982, and Sinha has told the searching IAS Gariwal in a casual conversation that after 1981, Indra ordered him to attack the Akal Takht around August 1982, and he refused. And in fact, he issued a Sinha doctrine that clearly says if you need to attack a Sikh temple, these are the steps to be taken. And he avoided civilian casualties. He took care of the army's psychological impact. And in 1983, Sinha was called to Delhi after 1982 August because Indra knew that this guy is not going to bend. I've tested him twice. In 1983, around January, what ails the Indian Army, Brigadier Manmohan Sharma, had a conversation with an insider, and this is 1983 January, an insider of the Ministry of Defense who told him, Sinha ko chief ship banne ka nahi hai. Sinha is nowhere going to become a chief of the Indian Army. This is 5 months before Sinha found out about it. So the insiders knew way back in January 83, and when Brigadier Manmohan Sharma asked him why, he said because Sinha thinks he's a hell of a historian and he doesn't want to attack the Akal Takht. The word used is Akal Takht. You can see that Brigadier Manmohan Sharma is eyewitnessing as a very, very credible figure. The target was Akal Takht going back to January of 1983. And this tells you that she has total disregard about the feelings of the Sikh soldiers. She could care less about the very integrity of India. She was set in a diabolic ways. She took out Lieutenant General Sinha when he gave her a 40-page report why the Akal Takht should not be attacked. And in that, it clearly tells her that the impact of the attack on the Sikh army would be chaos. She ignored that. So, of course, they were prepared, but in spite of the preparedness and moving around of the Sikh soldiers, you can still see the reaction was there. So the planning was very clear. It involved high-ranking officers, like to replace Lieutenant General Sinha under the pretext of promoting him, moving him to Delhi, and then just bumping him out of the army completely. Now Sundarji, the guy who attacked the Golden Temple, again you go back to Brigadier Manmohan Sharma, the insider. He says Sundarji is a corrupt army officer because he skewed the Bofors weapons test results to favor the Gandhi government and the Amitabh Bachchan brothers. So you can see the level of corruptness, bringing retired soldiers, the Brahmin upper caste General Vaidya back into action, bringing Sinha and getting many other corrupt people like Kuldeep, Blad, Dayal, all these. I would say that they are the wretches of the army without any backbone, any regard for anything. They were willing, they were mercenaries at this point, all of them. They were mercenaries, and they're responsible for death of thousands of Indian soldiers. I spoke to a friend of mine, and I said, he's a major in the Indian Army, and he's moved here near my town. I just casually asked him, I said, what was the casualties of the army? He said, no one knows, but he says, during the attack on the Darbar Sahib, he was in Amritsar, his wife was in critical condition, she was expecting. She said the nearest hospital they got was in Chandigarh. All the hospitals were taking care of the injured army officers. He said this is something you can realize that how many army officers were hurt and injured. So this is a wake-up call for India to study Operation Blue Star, which is an attack on its own citizens, and the end result was a dynastic rule, promote this is I would say kind of a soft Hindutva idea. And so the question that the army was fully aware, and the Sikhs who cared and loved Harmandir Sahib, and I would say that they served India. They not only served the Sikhs, they served India, that in spite of all these corrupt army officers who were involved in operating smuggling weapons for promotions, skewing army test results. These are all puppets. These are all dangerous elements of the army, and the true soldiers like Sinha and other Sikhs, they stood up for the right cause.
Yeah, and we've talked obviously primarily about the attack on the Harmandir Sahib, but of course other Gurdwaras across Punjab were attacked at the same time. But what is very clear is that this was not just an attack, it's part of a campaign to destroy the Sikh nation and destroy Sikh heritage and destroy Sikh culture, because of course one of the targets, the deliberate targets on the attack was on the library that contained centuries of sacred scriptures, of documents, of rich history and culture of the Sikh nation. It's tragic what was lost in those few days in June.
Well, if you the school curriculum in California, the school board, which oversees teachings of history in California, a couple of years ago, they were revisiting what books to teach in California. I would say mostly the BJP-leaning Hindutva politicians of America, whether they were congressmen, whether they were city mayors, including the consulates, Hindu American Foundation, Hindu Swam Sevak Sangh, which is an extension of the RSS, they wrote to the California School Board to eliminate the very word Sikh from the school curriculum. In its place, they wanted, for example, Dalip Singh Sound was the first U.S. congressman to be elected to the U.S. Congress. They wanted him to be described not as a Sikh, but as an Indian or South Asian. So in the same way, Sikh pioneers that came to the United States or the Gadar movement, they wanted them to be described as Indians or South Asians. And they attacked the Gurbani of Kabir. They attacked Nanak, that he did not start anything unique. So judging by the attitude of the elite and educated in America, attacking Sikh literature here, you can imagine in 1983 January, where precision has been in place, that the Akal Takht is the target. You can imagine that other things like the library and every aspect of the operation was well thought out, deliberate, and to strike a blow to the Sikh psyche, to destroy them, if possible, just off the map of the world, which is a dream that many have tried and failed miserably.
Indeed. And time is closing in on us, but one final question, Bhajan. What conclusions have you drawn from all of this and all of your research?
I think Sikhs are unprepared, but they are realizing this in a big way. They were unprepared. And we should take lessons that we should not react immediately to any issue. The Sikhs are demanding Khalistan today. Let's step back and look at the reasons why, pros and cons, and discuss it amicably within our family. Because we have seen that once the attack happened, most of the elite in the Sikhs were blaming Bhindranwale. And we should hang our head in in shame today after uncovering from Indira Gandhi's own insiders that this was beyond the control of Bhinder or anyone else. To Bhinder's credit, he fought like a lion, and they really faced the enemy who has been planning this attack. People like General Subek Singh, who has worked with the KGB, who has worked in the areas of Bangladesh, who knows a thing or two that once this ball is set in motion, nothing is going to turn it, reverse it. As we have seen the rest of the world, whether it's the attack on Iraq, Colin Powell is telling the United Nations the weapons of mass destruction, the same old story. But the Sikhs should again today take back, before we start fighting among ourselves over every issue, we should look back and analyze what's the greater loss, what is the greater gain for Punjab, where should we channel our directions. Each Sikh should educate himself very well. The second thing is, when Gurus called for the Panj Pyaras in 1699, 80,000 people came and heeded the call of Guru Gobind Singh. When he asked for the heads to be sacrificed, 4 came from other parts, far regions of India, and only 1 came from Punjab. It tells you the message of Sikhi is for the broader India, and people, had we done our job and not loosen our guard ever since the independence of India, and embraced many of the ideas of the Guru, we would not have been isolated just as we are. So we have to go back and revive the Panj Pyara concepts. We have to embrace our Sikh brothers and sisters who are still active in many parts of India, in Chhattisgarh, in Tamil Nadu. We need to start working and adopt each Sikh family and see how we can make him a Sawa Lakh in economic, social, political, religious, all aspects of one's life. That's the level of urgency we should develop. Also, we should find ideas and research how to present ideas to Canada and America, how Sikhs can play a part when it comes to true democracy, geopolitics. So we need our think tanks, our thinkers to come out and engage the world right now, especially after India's vulnerability in the face of the assassinations. The time has come to use the transnational repression, just like Olek in the mid-80s. He used the human rights and the Cold War geopolitical situation to his advantage and was relentless in cornering the Indian government in Washington, D.C. So the challenges are there, especially we have assassinations happening here. We have attack on our curriculums, attack on our Gurdwara, the interference of the Indian consulate in the Sikh Gurdwaras. So we have a wide array of challenges, and the key element is to educate ourselves individually on the past, reflect on the future, and reflect on the present, and plan for the future. That's what the Sikhs, especially diaspora, they really need to be. There's an urgency about Punjab. Youths are being forced to leave Punjab under dire threats of insecurity, economic conditions. So we have a lot of homework to do. Every free Sikh who is not under the chokehold or the jackboot of the Hindutva Indian state, they should devote their lives to nothing but bringing the Guru's teachings to the world and creating allies, political, economical, social, every aspect of allies. The world is there. There's a lot of common threat in the world. There's a lot of frustration in the world right now. People are seeing the fight between the truth and lies, justice and injustice. And this is where the Gurus came in and traveled all the way to Mecca and engage the people of Mecca and engage the people of Kanyakumari all over India And we have a golden opportunity here to engage the world in the ideas of the Guru, the history of the Guru. Every sufferer in the world today will understand and will be a sympathizer to you when you explain the Operation Blue Star, its premeditated intentions, and the fallout and the sufferings of the Sikh nation today.
Powerful words, but there we must leave it. But we will be talking again soon with Bhajan Singh Bhinder to continue our discussions. Bhajan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
And thank you for watching the Satluj TV podcast. We will see you next time.